what I want to do is go out as a student of the natural world. And that means I make the connection, that's my job, then I sit and listen. Because I think so many people go out into the world and they praise the natural world, they give offerings, and then they go home and have a cup of tea. And they never wait to see what the response is from the natural world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 115 of Toward a Better Life, the podcast featuring like-minded people sharing stories, ideas, and activities on what we can do to generate a better life individually and collectively. You know, in today's world, there truly is a need to seek balance, harmony, compassion, kindness on so many levels, personally, culturally, spiritually, to name a few, but it begins with each of us, individually. And that's what I like to share on the podcast from around the world, seeking others of the same spirit, heart, and mind. And this is the platform, a school, if you will, a venue to begin and continue that journey in wholeness and harmony. I also offer the opportunity for you to share your music, prose, poetry, or storytelling on the show. Just send them to me. Please subscribe to the show if you haven't done so already through your favorite podcast platform, and keep following weekly for magical insights into earth-based spirituality, self-development, and self-care. Also, remember to support the show by leaving your reviews on Apple or Spotify podcast or whatever podcast. Please do leave a review. It only takes a moment, and it just helps things out. Please visit my website, too, towardabetterlife.com. And be sure to check out the events page while you're there for details that you can join me in just a couple of weeks at my upcoming workshop, Ancestral Healing, Becoming the Hollow Bone. And that's coming this April to Maine, and there are still a few seats left. You can also contact me to learn more about a free discovery call to help you on your journey. Just send all your inquiries to me, Kevin, at towardabetterlife.com. Now on for the other bit, that is our chat. In this episode, I welcome Penny Billington. Penny has been practicing and living the life of Druidry for many years. She's been involved with the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids equally as long, through teaching, organizing events for OBOD's early camps, offering weekend workshops internationally, and coordinating events such as the prestigious Mount Haemus Awards. Penny currently co-facilitates the OBOD's inner visualization and ritual workshops. She runs a grove in the Somerset levels and has devised ceremonies and talks for groups. As an author, she's written several books, including The Path of Druidry, Walking the Ancient Green Way, and her latest, How to Stop the Rain, Conversational Magic with the Cosmos. Penny also offers regular insights into the life of Druidry online. There are links in the show notes for more information about Penny and her work. We recorded this chat, just so that you know, because there are a few references to Imbolc, and so we actually recorded it a little bit before Imbolc. But her message is timeless, as you'll hear. Have a listen to Penny Billington on our chat, Living a Druid Life. And by the way, stay tuned right afterward for a song from Damh The Bard's latest album, Raise the Flag of Green, used by permission, which will also complement today's chat with Penny. So, on with this week's chat. So that today on this episode, I am privileged and I feel really honored, I'm going to say that, Penny, to welcome Penny Billington to our program. And Penny is across the pond, as we might say. Good day, Penny.
Good day. Lovely to be here.
Thanks for coming on. Penny's been with OBOD for many, many years. OBOD is the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids over there in the UK. And I've been involved with it for a while now, and I've mentioned time and time again on our the Hearths forum and so forth that you feel like you're coming home. And while we were talking here, getting ready to record, we just started realizing, oh, we really should do this because we're really taking off on this.
That's right.
So I will say this at the outset, everyone. What we're going to be looking into with Penny is the magic of the seasons. And we're starting to look at the spring equinox. And it is just magic, not at this only time of year, but it's magic year round when you look at the 8 different celebrations of the seasons that are involved. And I love synchronicity, and I will say that now, Penny, because today I was reading. I recently got the Druid Path Tarot deck, if I have that correct, from Philip and Stephanie Cargam.
Oh,
And
Druidcraft, yes.
Druid, yeah. And I was looking through that and reading this morning, and it was talking about the number 8 and how went into the celebrations and it went into the magic of all of this. And the one thing that keeps coming through to me is the magic of the world that we live in. And then you bring up about how let's talk about the magic of the seasons. And I went, wow, talk about
Mm,
synchronicity. So
yeah.
why don't you tell us a little bit about Penny Billington for people that don't know you, and then we'll
Okay.
take off from there.
Okay, so I've been a Druid grade Druid for a number of years because our order has is like a training school, and I'm an author and speaker. I've had several books with Llewellyn Worldwide, and I like self-publishing just for the fun of it as well. One of my self-published books was about called the art of conversation with the cosmos, natural magic, because I think that is the way to go.
Hmm.
There are two things about. I edited Touchstone,
Right.
Druid magazine for 20 years. I run a local grove, so it's people actually meeting on the Somerset levels, and I'm still involved with the organisation of OBOD, organising retreats and so on.
Hmm.
The thing about the magic of the seasons is there's so much to talk about because you've got magic, one issue, and the seasons, the other. The seasons is easier. So if we start with that, I would say many spiritual people suffer because although they've got a spiritual impulse, they still buy into this mundane world idea, mechanistic idea
Mm.
that we all have to be 100% all the time, up and doing all the time, optimistic all the time, this sort of thing. And actually, we're organic beings and we're intuitively connected to our world. And our energy rises and it falls and it rises and it falls. And some people will know it rises with seasons, particularly. They might get sad, the seasonal affective disorder. Some people hate the summer. Some people say that they're chrysanthemums because they are autumn people. People who think about themselves in relation to the world and the weather and the seasons know which ones they veer towards. They know when
Hmm.
they will have most energy. And part of the magic of the seasons is getting in touch with that and learning, for example, to hibernate when you need to,
Hmm.
whether that's in August because it's too hot for you or in January because it's too cold. Really, it's your rhythm that matters and your relationship with the seasons. Um, and then, of course, every season has its own magic to give. And as druids or practitioners of any nature path, there are a lot of other nature paths as well as druidry. Um, I think we learn to be fascinated by the world. And I think we get our energy from that, even on a dreary January day. It's just been pouring here in England. I mean, so torrential, it would break your umbrella if you went out in it. But now the sun's shining, so there will be a walk. There will be birds to see. There will be the first signs of life for Imbolc, and that's what I will get my rest and refreshment and energy from today when we finish this talk. Um, so I think that's a good habit to get into, constantly referencing the outside world. When I give talks or at a retreat or whatever, I always say to people, never worry about looking out the window. If I see people looking out the window while I'm talking, that's fine. It's our world. We've got to check on it all the time because, as you know, Kevin, I am absolutely fascinating. But so's that spider that's hanging, down from that little web there, and so's everything in our world, and it all demands our attention.
It
When you
does.
see people who are old before their years, I
Mm.
think you can see them, people who are closed in on themselves. And when you see people who you'd say are young for their age, they are always open and looking out to be fascinated by the world. I think that's a very important lesson for us all.
It's magical. That's the magic
Mm,
part is
yeah.
people ask me, they said, well, how do you stay so young? And I said, well, for one thing, I try to take care of myself as best as I can, but I get as
Yep.
much time outside as I can, even if it's 4 degrees like it was here the other day.
Yes.
Find
Yes.
a reason. And I can't remember where it was that I read it, but something about how, there's nothing quite comparable to feeling the energy of a crisp winter day. That doesn't mean that I'm going to stay out here forever. It doesn't mean that I'm going to not bundle up. When you think about that and we look at the magic of the seasons,
Yeah.
that's magical. It really
Yes.
is. It's divert enough from the summer and the spring that I look at that and I say, well, cold is cold. And it can be bone-chilling cold. But the
Yeah.
beauty of and the magic and the wheel of life, when I look at this, is Imbog is coming, and so is spring, and so is
Yep.
Beltane. And when I've really had enough of it, it settles back down and it starts moving toward the cooler temperatures. It isn't that, we don't live in a linear life. We live in a circular life, don't we?
That's right. It's all cyclic, isn't it? It's wonderful. And also spiraling,
Hmm.
because you'll never hit the same season in the same way ever, ever again. This is it, Kevin. This
Yeah.
this talk we're having, that's it, mate. If we have another one tomorrow, completely different
Uh-huh.
subject, different everything.
And if that
Yes,
isn't enough, then we realize we're in the northern hemisphere, and then in the southern hemisphere, they have a completely different experience. And this program is heard by some folks down in Australia.
yes.
Spiral Dance is on from time to time,
Oh,
and they're
lovely.
yeah, and of course they're down there in the down under, so to speak. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, of course, OBOD is an international organization, and I'm always stunned at how creatively people connect their druidry to the place that they're in. Because you think, what actually is a druid? I
Hmm.
think sort of in a priest of the land, a priest or
Hmm.
priestess of the land. The sort of person. I mean, John Michael Greer actually said. Druids are a nightmare to systematize us because you get 100 druids, 100 different opinions, but they all tend to agree that by looking at nature, by through nature, that, that's the easiest way you can get to access the divine is through
Hmm.
nature. In fact, so that boils down to nature is a good thing. We
Hmm.
should look at it, we should connect and interact with it. And I mean, when you get I remember many years ago asking someone from Australia, well, what animals do you have? I mean, I think at the time they some of them were using the European animals, but of course you wouldn't ever find that now because they have their own native animals to go in the quarters. They've got their own sky for goodness sake, where everything's
Yeah.
upside down and the wrong way around. They have their fiery place in the north
Hmm.
and their winter place in the south. And it's fascinating just seeing how these things are adapted worldwide because what we're all after, I think, is to make a story with our journey on the earth and in
Hmm.
the earth with the earth, and why? I mean, you wonder why sometimes. I did a lunar celebration and I looked down, I got a white robe on, fantastic. It's all clean and lovely. And
Hmm.
there was a black slug climbing up it, up to my knee, this wretched thing. I'm not a slug person, and I think I was in the east, my husband was in the west. And this ceremony was going on, and I just beckoned him in a sort of very druidic way. And he came over ceremonially, flicked it off me, and then walked back.
Boy,
But
there's a
then you,
visual,
yeah, but then you think,
ceremoniously and
yeah,
and
well,
with intent.
we had another ceremony where we all just stopped because there was a covey of little goldfinches just landed on the teasels just by us. Now, what could we possibly be doing that would be as important as looking at these tiny little golden birds all eating away just for a couple of minutes, a couple of seconds, then they were gone. and the ceremony continued. Interaction with the world. That's what it's about.
I remember in a gathering many, many years ago when I was living in North Florida, there was a group of indigenous people that would get together and
Mhm.
to do it monthly. And it wasn't necessarily around a moon cycle or anything like that, but it was just we just would get together. And I remember the leader of that was Ken Two Feathers, and Two Feathers was the gentleman that I wrote a book about some years ago. And I remember distinctly one time where there was a murder of crows up in the trees.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
mean, they were cackling like there was no tomorrow.
Ah,
Unbelievable. They want to be part of this because they could probably feel the energy of what was going on. But Kenny was getting ready to do a talk and it was so loud. They were so loud, Penny, you couldn't really understand. Because he didn't,
mhm.
we don't use microphones out there when they're in the natural world because we're just kind of
Yeah.
connected with everything. And all he did is he took his hands, Penny, and he brings them over his head and just brings them down quietly and just goes, shh. And they stopped. You could
Ah,
have heard a pin drop or
wow.
the proverbial microphone drop because they listened. And it was like, people, if you really don't understand, the
Mm.
natural world does respond to us when we are in the right place, when we are where we're supposed to be.
This is it. This is the really important point, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
when people talk about magic, they we're so there's so many films and books and
Mm.
uh, things that people tend to think about
Yeah.
manipulating natural laws to get what you want, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Now everyone knows that if you can ping someone with a you know, I can't remember what they're called, those things that little boys have, that you pull it back and the stone goes ping. Slingshot. Yeah,
Yeah.
the little
Yeah.
slingshot. But if you ping, how no matter how far you pull back the natural laws of the universe with your ideas, they'll ping back and smack you on your hand. You
Mm.
can't manipulate.
Mm-mm.
I don't believe. But what you can do, as you said, is get in tune. Just get when you're in tune with things. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. The main thing is to have no expectations about it, no sense of entitlement. Just put yourself out there with integrity and ask for what you want. And I think a lot of people are so nice and generous and kind and altruistic, and they want to go out and heal the world.
Mm.
And my take is that actually the world's doing pretty well without us. If we wipe ourselves off the face of the planet will still
Mm-hmm.
be there. What I want to do is go out as a student of the natural world. And that means I make the connection, that's my job. Then I sit and listen because I think so many people go out into the world and they praise the natural world, they give offerings, and then they go home and have a cup of tea, and they never wait to see what the response is from the natural world.
There you go. And you've nailed it by sit and listen. And I've talked with some folks recently when we get into earth magic, earth spirituality, whatever term you want to use.
Yep.
And by the way, I like the idea. Did you say priest or priestess of nature? Is that the Druid?
Yes, of the land, of the living earth.
Okay, I want to get that right because I really love the term.
Yeah, or of sentient nature then, because I think we're so human, we're brought up to be human centric, and it takes us a lifetime to realize that the earth is alive and intelligent and capable of communicating with us because it doesn't do it with words. You
Mm-mm.
know, you move stones from your rockery, you know, and one just falls down and lands on your foot, and you have to go to accident and emergency, you know, that's a message from a stone. Might be a message from a stone.
It could
Might be a
be.
message from yourself that you're too tired to do it now. But, you know, when people make stone circles, they do say some are really, some stones seem reluctant and others just whiz along saying, come and plant me, boys, you know.
Hmm.
Uh, if we want a proper relationship, we have to give the other with anything, we have to give the other person the time and respect to listen to them and to hear what they've got to say.
and that's it. And when we say
Yeah.
the other person, it's not just human.
No, that's right.
It's the trees, it's the birds, it's the
Yeah,
snails, it's the flies, it's all of it. It's every
that's
bit of
right.
it. And
Yeah.
we see how they all shift, and that goes back to the magic of the seasons, and in that they learn to abide and they learn to, I'm going to use the word cope,
Yep.
because sometimes we see it as adversity, and being able to overcome adversity is through coping mechanisms. We all, this is all,
Yep.
we get into the psychology of it all and everything, but the bottom line is just connect.
Yes.
Just if you want to understand how to work the best in a given season, look at the natural world around you and what are
Yes.
they doing? Like right
That's right.
now, I never realized it until some years ago that when I was being brought up, we are always told about how bears hibernate, and I had visions of a bear just sleeping for 3 months, a
Mm.
mini Rip Van Winkle.
Yep.
And they said, no, no, it's not it at all. They slumber and they will stay asleep longer, but they're in kind of a drowsy state, and they kind of lumber along as opposed to all vibrant and alive and alert because it's so warm and free and springly and
Yeah.
everything else. No, I want to settle down. And I took that another level and said, okay, so in the wintertime, the bear and other mammals similar to them will hibernate. And the idea of the hibernation is just to kind of go into a safe space and listen to yourself and deal with some of your own stuff. And I said, if you really looked at that from a human being standpoint, what can I learn from the natural world around me?
Yeah.
All of the trees, they pull in their sap and they give all of their nurturing and all of their nourishment to their root system when it's cold
That's right.
outside. The bears go within, the bears give birth
Yep.
during hibernation. And
Yep.
and we think, how can I give birth in my own life? And you think about, well, in the wintertime, maybe it's a time for me to pull back and
Yeah.
look into myself. That's the way I
I
look
was,
at it.
yeah, I'm completely with you. I love this idea of a hibernation period, and I always think the dark times from summer onwards, I see them as the gestation period. So you withdraw from the things of the outside world and you begin to focus on what's important to you. And in that way, when Imbolc comes, when the spring comes, you're full of you're full of self-nurture. You've looked after yourself and given yourself space because we're all far too involved with each other in life, external life anyway. And and you've been nurturing all and gestating all these lovely ideas and getting plans. I mean, people do it in the mundane world, or you'll notice it from the adverts. What they do is they plan their holidays, don't they?
Hmm.
In December, all the adverts come on television for holidays.
Yep.
But there are so many more worthwhile things to focus on as well. I mean, book your holidays, that's great fun, but life plans, what we want to achieve over this next growing season is very important.
Hmm.
And I think the equinoxes are very important.
Yep.
The actual shift from more light than dark to more dark than light. At the early magicians and esotericists thought that these were the cosmic gears shifting and were very, very important.
Hmm.
So, and as I love reading about Edwardian magicians, then I think they're important as well.
I read another one of Philip's books. I've got two or three books typically going at the same time. I have what I call brain candy, and my latest thing on brain candy is that's another story, but typically it's actually historical fiction.
Yep,
Sometimes it's hysterical fiction, but yeah, it's pretty good.
yep.
But anyway, so I was reading through uh, the Book of English. Is it the Book
English
of
magic.
English Magic? Yeah. And
Yep.
what a fascinating read that was, and it just brings to light more about magic. And as you mentioned earlier, the media that's around us depict a different picture of what we think magic is.
Mm,
And as a hypnotherapist, I can tell you that there is a big difference between a hypnotist and a
yep.
hypnotherapist. And the way it was instructed to me, both of them are hypnotism, but one is on the stage and one is therapeutic. And I look at a
Yes.
magician and I look at a magician. I don't know what the difference, if there's a
Yeah.
different term that way, but when I look at a magician, I think of Merlin. I think of others that have been around for many, many years,
Yeah.
and the real
Yeah.
magicians, like you said, the Edwardian magician.
Mm. They were wonderful people. I'm talking about the Golden Dawn in England,
Sure.
and my magical mentor, Dion Fortunes. I mean, she died. Don't let me pretend anything. She died before I was born, and
Hmm.
like many people on a spiritual quest, I thought for many years, when the student is ready, the teacher will arrive. You will
Yes.
arrive, and I kept thinking, where the hell is this teacher then? I'm ready. I can tell you I'm ready. And then I looked on my bookshelf and I thought, this woman who died 7 years before I was born, all her stuff is in there, all her teachings, and I'm just ignoring her because I want someone to walk down the road. And I've been very attached to Deal and Fortune ever since. I've gone off the path about that. What we said, yes, this is the important thing for people who have a spiritual year. I always call it the yearning
Hmm.
because most people don't seem to have it. It's weird, but if you do have it, it's got to be fulfilled.
Hmm.
And most people who do, Bill Gray, a famous, wonderful magician, he said a magician wants to co-create life. He
Hmm.
wants to step out of just letting things happen to him and co-create what's going on. And that puts us sort of in touch with divinity
It
in
does.
quite a big way. There are all these wonderful, natural, huge currents affecting us, and we're going to step in and we're going to have a say as well.
And that's the intentional part when you get
Yeah.
the magic of intention. And
Yes.
and the word that tends to work its way around a lot in many circles, be it, I guess there's still new age stuff.
Mm. Yeah.
Not sure, but the term that we hear a lot of is manifestation. Manifestation. I'm going to manifest this.
Yeah.
There are other terms that are similar to this, and it leaves me for the moment for a reason. I'm not supposed to talk about it, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I think the magic that's really there when we look again, going seasons and so forth, or seasons in life, and we look at the intention and the co-creation that you're talking about is right. It's spot on.
Yeah. Manifestation, it's interesting because I sort of do believe in it, don't believe it. It does happen. I mean, I've manifested things in the past, but I think things like that offer far too simplistic a solution. And I think life is complex and nuanced. And one of the most interesting books I read was uh, How People Heal and Why They Don't, or something like that. I think it was
Hmm.
a Caroline Miss book. And this idea that we can manifest anything we want, tosh, because if people are in distress or ill or whatever, and then you say, oh well, you're not trying hard enough, or you'll be able to. It's cruel. It's a cruel philosophy. Life is not like that.
Mm-mm.
Yet there's something in it. There is
There,
something in it. I actually did some magic can I tell you about a magical experiment I did?
please do.
Yeah, okay. So I gave a talk at a camp, and it was in a marquee, and the rain came down in steroids right at the end. I got a little bit of applause, and then bang! It was thunderous on the tent roof. No one could go out. So, like Cliff Richard or Elvis Presley in one of those early films, I said, "Hey kids, why don't we do the show right here? We're all druids or magicians or heathens or whatever. Let's do some magic to stop the rain." And about 40 people came over to my part of the tent, and the rest thought, "What's she going on about?" And so I devised this way of doing it, and this is what I did. The first thing is it was an experiment. I did not think I could affect the weather in the slightest, but I did wonder whether a group of people could get in tune in a way that would be beneficial to them, because that's why we do this stuff, because
Hmm.
it's good for us. So what we did, first of all, we thought, what do you do with a child who desperately wants your attention? You know, would you walk around ignoring it? No, that's cruel. You'll give it your attention. So the first thing we did was we praise. I made everyone call out, praise the rain. Why do we look? Everyone needs rain.
Hmm.
Our life depends on it. So we had about 20 or 30 ideas of why rain was good. It made the flowers grow. We got our
Mhm.
crops, all that sort of thing. We did that. And then to up the energy a bit, my husband and I knew a song which praised the rain. So I made it very simple, happy clappy. I made everyone join in with it and we danced. And we all had this idea that I think I'd petitioned the rain beforehand and said, you do what you want. You're a huge, great power, but we'd love some sun on our camp. Just see what you can do. And no matter what, this is for you. So that was the intent I'd set up. I didn't care what happened, but we wanted the rain to stop. But with the dancing around, clapping and singing, we sort of lost that intent. We didn't have an outcome. We were just having fun in the moment. It was brilliant. And then we all sort of shouted thank you and, hugged each other and thought that was fun. And within 5 minutes, the rain just gently stopped and a rainbow came out. And that is the truth. Um, and then I walked around the camp at night. There were campfires and lovely things. No one was talking about it. I mentioned it to the organizer and she said, "Oh, yeah, that's interesting." And I thought, people are embarrassed about this, not whether we did magic or not, but about this interaction with a sentient universe. They're
Yeah,
just not comfortable with it.
that's
Because
it.
if I'd done that, someone else had led me to do that at the beginning of my path, I'd have been phoning the neighbors and writing to my mum and telling her, I would have been over the moon. But people aren't comfortable, and we have to learn to be comfortable making a story with the other elements. Now, you can try that if your daughter's going to get married and it's pouring down with rain, and you might or you might not be lucky. But if you don't ask, do you remember there's an expression in England, if you don't ask, you don't get. It's as simple as that.
That's pretty simple.
Yeah.
And it's
And
and
the
it's
other thing is the more you do it, this is experiential, the more it's likely. So, for example, Ken, we're sort of meeting now pretty well for the first time. Yeah. So if I ask you to, I say, actually, we've had a great talk, but I'm a bit short. Can you lend me $50?
hmm,
You might think this conversation's gone in a very weird direction. What's going on now? But if we lived next door to each other and we had an experience of a sort of reciprocal relationship where you took my Amazon parcels in and I walked your dog when you've got a gammy leg, then that would seem quite natural. So the
mhm.
more you talk to the world, the more response you get back from it. You be,
Ah,
as that tree and that stream and that rock become known to you, so you become known to them.
yep.
And I can't say that it's right or wrong. I can just say life is an experiment, and this is my experience. And it makes my life much more multi-dimensional, more fun, more exciting, and it makes sense to me. So that's all. I don't have to justify it to anyone else. I just have to get on and have fun in
That's
my own
okay.
special way.
That's it. It sums it up.
And yeah, and
Have you?
hopefully get a gang of like-minded people so we can have fun together.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. When are you coming to North Carolina?
Oh, well,
You could actually say to me, when are you coming to Somerset?
that's right. It's such a long way away, isn't it? Long way
It
away.
is. But
Um,
something just occurred to me though, Penny, as you
yep.
were telling that story, thoughts ran through my head, and rather than telling stories, the question is, have you noticed in your own experience, sometimes the most phenomenal, magical experiences, you don't really put a lot of effort into it,
Yeah.
and they just happen. And then the piece of it is just like you said, after the fact, you go out and you maybe inquire around, did you notice that? And they say, yeah, that was lovely. That was quite lovely.
Mm,
But then the question comes in, who is the magic for? Who was to gain the blessing, if you will, from that moment? Because the people that were supposed to be truly blessed by that were. The people that were just participants, or I say just, but they
yeah.
just participated in it, it doesn't nullify their involvement. It doesn't nullify that it could have an effect on their lives 10, 15, 20 years down the road, just like I talked about with Kenny when he did the whoosh and all the
Yeah.
crows stopped chattering. And
Yeah.
you don't think about that at the moment,
No.
but when the time is right, when everything is as it should be, the
Mm.
universe, if you want to use the term, the natural world will recall that back to our minds and we'll be able to make a practical application and thereby grow. Does that make sense?
I think that makes perfect sense. And I think if you think when you do your spiritual practice, whatever it is, lighting a candle every day and saying
Hmm.
hello to the universe, whatever it is, feeding the birds might be someone else's. Dog walks can be incredibly spiritual people because they have this little pilgrimage that they have to abide by
They
every day.
have to, yes.
Um, uh, a lot of the time in our spiritual practice, we're sort of on a plateau. And it's funny that then sometimes suddenly you think you're aware you've taken a step up and you've not plateaued, but suddenly your experience is becoming richer and fuller. And you think, oh, I didn't used to notice that. I'm noticing more now. Therefore, all these months or years of spiritual practice, that's the effect. And now I'm noticing more. Because when you say, what are the blessings for? What blessings aren't for anything. Blessings are just pouring through the world every uh, time an acorn falls. That's a blessing, isn't it, for us
Hmm.
all?
Hmm.
Every time I mean, my daughter's friend has just had a baby. None of my business, for goodness sake. But it is because every child is a blessing. Every little gardeners will know, farmers will know, everything you plant is a blessing. And it's just these are permeating through the world. It's just, do you think as a hypnotherapist, you see, Aleister Crowley said magic was the art of making change
Mm.
in the world. And Dion Fortune said it's the art of making change in consciousness.
Hmm.
And I think the magic is how we look at the world,
Yes.
how we look with gratitude and with an understanding of the blessings of the world and so on, that make us actually fundamentally change our relationship to the world and to ourselves and make us much more balanced people,
Hmm.
people of service, more loving people. And surely we ought to make the world a bit better by being here, not make it a bit worse, by being loving and kind and generous people. Um, and if we've got a relationship with the world, that somehow gives us a wider perspective. And that means that the little human niggles with your partner and with your children and all that, because those people are really, really annoying people, aren't they? Always,
They
always.
can be,
You're
yes.
always, you're always, but then you go and walk in nature and you think, well, actually, I'm pretty annoying as well. Well, let's see, let's just get over this one. You get a different perspective by being in nature. I
Yeah.
think that's part of the magic and that's part of the blessing of being in nature, just to feel like a part of a wider scenario than your
When
little house.
when I do hypnotherapy, there's a the technique that I use that I was taught and has been quite successful is very similar to what Philip does when he does a meditation, like on tea
Yeah,
with a druid. It's we refer to it as progressive relaxation. And when I get to that place where I feel that the person is, I'm going to use the term receptive.
yeah,
Typically, what I like to do is I like to paint pictures for them in their mind. And I'll say, visualize, if you will, that you're on a path and I want you to feel the ground beneath your feet. You can feel it because you're barefoot. You can feel
yeah.
the granules of the sand. You can feel the delicate blades of the grass. You can feel the dew as it kind of works its way around your toes. Just name it. Just keep. But how often it is, Penny, that I will revert into when you're doing this walk, you're in the natural world. And I tell them, as I go through a deepening process, that there's a set of stairs. And I'm giving away all my little goodies here, but
Yeah,
there's a set of stairs, and I want you to look at that set of stairs because they're very natural, and I use that term. They're very natural in their appearance. They're not mechanical, they're not manufactured. They're just
no,
there, and it's an ideal set of stairs. and I want you to
Mm.
start walking down. But it's all the natural world. And then when I go further on deepening, I ask them to look around themselves and start to become one with the place that you're in, become one with the natural world that you're in. And I
Yeah.
want you to tell me what you see. And of course, that's part of the therapeutic part to bring out whatever it is they need to deal with. Because I always tell myself, when they say, "Well, you're a healer," I said, "No, I'm not. I'm a facilitator. You do the
Yep.
healing."
Yep.
And I like to tongue in cheek say, "I'm the guy with the flashlight. It's up to you to take the walk."
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And of course, the
But
thing is for them to feel to own their this is why books on visualization can be unhelpful because they tell you every step of the path, they tell you what you're going to see, and they think, actually, where's my input, where does
yes,
my creative thing, because I want to create it for myself.
hmm
So I mean, a good therapist, of course, or you leave the space and you ask the person, don't you?
right.
Just as you leave the space for the answer from nature and just say, what, sit by a tree, what have I got to learn today? What have I got to hear, And then I don't know, something, maybe a bird feather flutters down here. Oh, I don't know what that means. Let's just let my mind woodle around with that or something, or a dog barks or so, and you just get taken out of yourself and into just as in your internal world, when you lead people, they tell you what they're seeing, what trees, what animals, and it's not the same thing. It's highly individual. Some
Yes,
people always see animals in their grove. I lead a moon club, and we go to so we've created a grove, an internal grove, and so I'll tell you that it's got a beautiful silver birch in the middle, so that the moon can shine on the silver birch. But within that grove, people see all sorts of things.
yes.
If, unless it's personal, unless you've crafted it, it's not. These are not things that are done to people. These are things we learn to do for ourselves,
And the
and
beauty of
that's the
all
magic.
And I was just going to say that's the magic
Yeah,
of it, Penny,
yeah,
because I've talked about the hypnotherapy session and talked about some of the subtle things that a hypnotherapist might do to bring
mm,
about some of this work.
mm.
But take it to another level, Penny. We can create our own scenario when we go out in the woods like that. I don't have to have somebody guiding me with the proverbial flashlight that I talked about. You
Mm.
can create your own world when you're out there, and you can snuggle up beside a tree and you can sit down. If you want to do this in the wintertime, by the way, you can do this in a snow-covered ground. You know what the trick is?
No,
You take a contractor trash bag with you that's a six
yeah,
mil lined, and you put it down on the ground. And you say, "Well, you're
yeah.
not really connecting." Yeah, and I really don't want wet pants.
I think. Well, I always think in these scenarios, I always think, what would the ancestors have done? I thought if
hmm
they'd had the bag, they'd have sat on it, wouldn't they? They weren't stupid.
Yeah. Well, I remember, without going into a lot more detail of it, you're talking about the little miracles. We're talking about the little magic, the little bits that come our way in our
Mm.
journeys, regardless. And I remember one winter time I went out, and this is when I was living up in Western New York, and I was out in the woods, and I had my cup. I had not my cup. I had my thermos of coffee.
Yeah,
I had my trash bag, and I
yeah.
sat it down beside a tree and I just sat there and just listening to the quiet. And there was snow on the ground. It was probably 20s, maybe 30s temperature wise.
Wow.
And I just sat down and I'm just looking around and to use your term that we talked about earlier, I just sat and listened.
Mm.
And the next thing I knew, now this is audio, so you can't really appreciate it, but the next thing I know, I feel this little tap on my shoulder.
Yeah.
And I looked, and it was a doe.
Oh my goodness. Oh,
And I
magic.
realized what had happened was I had fallen asleep. And
Yeah,
from that day forward, I said, if I have a terminal illness
yeah,
and if something
yeah,
is really going south for me, so to speak, I,
yeah,
I just want to take a blanket and I want to go out into the woods in the wintertime and I just want to
yeah,
fall asleep. But what
yeah,
easier way to do this? But
yeah.
that deer, Penny, saved my life.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I looked at her, and she didn't scamper off. She didn't run away. She just
Mm,
casually walked, and then she turned around and looked at me, and we
mm,
had a connection that was beyond words. I get goosebumps when I talk about this, just like I am right now, because our
yeah,
eyes met and we saw each other, and I walked her and I looked at her, and it was a beautiful moment. And she just
it's
left,
wonderful.
and I said, "Well, it's time for me to go," and I packed up my stuff and I left.
Off you went. Yeah, yeah. And the thing is that you have, by doing this work, I mean, well done for not dying, by the way. I mean,
Yeah.
that would sound like a risky business. But by doing this work, it's like having an internal photo album or video store, because that's one of obviously a potent and seminal moment in your life.
Hmm.
And you've got an image, you keep that within you. That's your memory. And, if you'd been watching television, you wouldn't have had that memory.
No.
So,
Mm-mm.
talking about watching television, though, this is really important because a lot of people do have disabilities or are older and can't get out in the wild and that. And I think YouTube videos, nature videos, things like that, they're really important for people who
Hmm.
cannot get out. Also, opening the window is really important. So
Yes.
you get an experience of the cold. If you're disabled, probably never get an experience of the cold in the winter unless you take it upon yourself to open a window and just engage with what is actually happening out there. So I think there are always things that one can do, no matter what one's age or state of mobility.
Yeah.
But we have to be creative. Being a druid and being a magician is about taking responsibility and being creative.
Hmm.
Those two things, I think we're set fair for a magical life.
That is. There you go.
Mm,
And that's it, the magical life of a druid.
yeah, it's
So
brilliant. And it's
I
fun.
it
It's
is.
good fun. Yeah.
It's so much fun. It's lovely because we have our feet in two worlds. We have our feet in the other world, we have our feet in the natural world. And you
That's
do the
right.
balance, and
Yeah.
that's okay. That's
Yeah.
okay.
And if
I
you overbalance occasionally, that's what being human's all about, making a mess of it.
Yeah.
The gods don't mind that. What they
Oh,
mind about is our integrity. They're used to us messing up.
yeah.
That's our job on this world.
Hmm.
Soon as you get your new robe on and think and feel you're pretty important, that's when you're going to trip over, possibly over your sword or your staff or some big thing that you've got yourself. But
See a slug on your white gown.
precisely, yeah, just when you're most noble.
You know what that was for, right? That was your wake up call of just know that I'm here.
Yeah. Oh,
I
yes, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's so busy connecting with the mystical stag and the sky. And is there a hawk up there? I think, hang on, this is your reality. This is it on the earth. Yeah.
Hmm. That sums it up.
Yeah.
So, I want to say too that if anyone would like, if you type in pennybillington.com, you can find Penny. And I would encourage everyone listening, everybody that's listening, and I'm just saying this because I'm very, very happy to get your thoughts that you send our way. But she
Yeah.
sends out
Really
an
fun.
email thing, and it's quite lovely. It's wonderful to see it, and I think it has something to do with living a druid life or something along those lines. Is and
That's right.
there's
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
and getting those bits that come our way are wonderful, Penny, and I'm going to say that because
Yeah.
they
Well,
they
well,
do my
connection
heart
is
good.
That's really nice because connection with the natural world, humans are part of the natural world as well. And
Yes.
those little emails, they just keep everyone connected,
Hmm.
and invite your comments back on things that I've put. They're usually out at seasonal times. So at the change, uh,
Yep.
looking back and things to think. But yeah, connecting to like-minded people is a good way to keep yourself on the path. I think at the moment, I'll tell you what we're doing at the moment. A group of us, 19 days before Imbolc, we started lighting 19 candles for Bridget, one each day.
Hmm.
And it's not too late to do this. If people want to do a little practice up to Imbolc, just light a candle each night, maybe listen to some harp music. it's because Bridget was to do with bardism and healing and smithcraft and all sorts of things. So read a poem, listen to a bit of harp music, just spend 5 minutes lighting a candle and thinking about the season to come. And I think you'll find it's much more, when the season arrives, it feels much more complete to you because you've been preparing for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing about because part of life is about giving back in service, is because we lit 19 candles, I'm giving 19 things to a food bank as
Oh,
well. It's just part of the, 19 candles for Bridget thing. I thought that's because we go into nature, we learn with our learning skills about the season and connect to written material and the history of our lands. And then the other ray, the important ray, is compassion and giving something back to the universe. So I'm collecting my tins of baked beans at the moment. And possibly
so
nicely. If you're giving to a food bank, don't always give them pasta. My God, they're swimming in pasta. It's dirt cheap. Everyone gives them pasta. Give them something nice.
yeah. So I think we already have a pretty good idea, but I'm going to ask a question anyway. What does Penny Billington do to create a better life for herself?
Um, I tell you what, I find it difficult to do, and I keep doing it. I was a teacher in a previous incarnation, and teachers are always collecting resources. You
Uh-huh.
might need the tubes from the inners of toilet rolls, so you collect 100 of those in case you're. There was collecting things. Maybe I'll be caught out and not have the right poem. I collect books. What I do consciously now is to keep clearing away and getting rid of the things I no longer need, because you get distracted if you're tripping over stuff all the time. It's as simple as that. If your house is clean and clear, and how often do we buy something, then realize we've got it in the store cupboard? I heard of someone buying a book and finding it on their shelves. It happens to all of us. We live in a land of plenty and more in this world. We're the fortunate ones. So just keep churning it out, keep giving it back. Charity, you call them thrift shops, don't you? Charity shops, thrift shops, libraries, food banks. Just keep getting rid of it all
Yeah,
and try and keep yourself clear. And that's a sort of do what I say, not what I do, because that is really a work in progress for me. I find it
sure.
very difficult, but I do keep doing it. And I greet the day every single day. I open my arms as if I'm embracing the day and say hello to everything. And then I stand and listen. And sometimes a bird answers me. Sometimes the trees in the garden blow and rustle. But something maybe is saying hello back. And I feel, I've made a connection. And then I go in and have the first cup of tea of the day. So, two things, one practical, one spiritual.
There you go. And that's
Yeah.
and that's a good balance. So, Penny, this has been, I'm going to say, enriching. It's because that's what it has been, to talk about Druidry and magic and the magic of the world. It doesn't matter if you're Druid, pagan, person, whatever you may be. If you're a wandering minstrel on the web of life, then enjoy it and just be and enjoy the magic. So, Penny, enjoy the magic of your day. Thanks ever so much for being with us on Toward a Better Life.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I've had a wonderful time. Really enjoyed myself. Bye-bye.
Let's do something beautiful no one will expect. Inspired something kind. Give and not collect. Let's do something beautiful. Dial a friend before they call. And if you hear them stumble, catch them when they fall. For the future's like a seed in our hands. It will better grow in soil than in sand. And we can plow and sow together, hand in hand. And watch the flowers spread throughout the land. Let's do something beautiful. Let's do something beautiful. Set our course and take the reins. There's a bright and better future. It's time to make a change. Let's do something beautiful. Go and play out in the sun. We've been too long in the shadows. Let's go and have some fun. For the future's like a seed in our hands. It will better grow in soil than in sand. We can plow and sow together hand in hand. And watch the flowers spread throughout the land. Let's do something beautiful. Let's do something beautiful. Take the higher ground. It's better to have sung your song than never made a sound. Let's do something beautiful. Set our sails to calm the wind and leave the rats upon the shore. That's a race, no one wins. For the future's like a seed in our hands. It will better grow in soil than in sand. We can plow and sow together hand in hand. And watch the flowers spread throughout the land. Let's do something beautiful. Let's do something beautiful.
That was Damh The Bard. Thank you, Dave, for sharing Something Beautiful, a song from his album Raise the Flag of Green, and that is used by his permission. Thanks also to Penny Billington for sharing some magical thoughts on living the life of a Druid. There are links in the show notes for both Penny Billington and Damh The Bard. If you're seeking insights and advice on how to create a better life for yourself, and if you'd like to dive in to self-care, self-development, or distant shamanic work, Reiki, or whatever, drop me a line, kevin@towardabetterlife.com, for a free discovery call. You can also visit my website, towardabetterlife.com, for past episodes, blog entries, ways to enhance your spiritual journey, and a few products to assist you on your journey. And be sure to check out the events page, everybody. There's details there where you can join me in just a couple of weeks at my upcoming workshop, Ancestral Healing, Becoming the Hollow Bone. That's coming this April in Maine, and there are still a few seats left. Send all your inquiries to kevin@towardabetterlife.com. Please subscribe and follow to the program through your favorite podcast platform, and do leave a review, if you would, on Apple or Spotify podcast. It helps to spread the word about the program, and it helps to create, a better life for everybody. If you have any questions, or if you'd like to share a story, music, or prose, if it's an audio file, just send it to me as an MP3. Or if you want to be my guest, please do write me, Kevin@towardabetterlife.com. Until next week, enjoy your magical journey toward a better life.